George Lucas made the Star Wars prequels with more money, better technology, and more creative freedom than when he made the originals. But they're worse. The reason why should matter to anyone making things, especially with AI.
It is the most popular space adventure of all time.
Exciting is hardly the word I would choose.
It's one of the most groundbreaking sagas in Hollywood history.
There'll be no one to stop us this time.
It captured imaginations with an irresistible force.
Star Wars wasn't made by one guy in a room. It was a collaboration of many talented people. Lucas had the vision, the story was his, sure, but the people around him helped make it better. They challenged him constantly. His wife, Marcia, the film's editor, fought him on major decisions. She convinced him to kill Obi-Wan. She saved the pacing in the final act, and she won an Oscar for it. Gary Kurtz, the producer, pushed back constantly. Even the actors pushed back. Harrison Ford famously told him, "You can write this shit, but you can't say it."
There was a moment in it when finally the princess reveals her great love for him, and her line is, "I love you." And George had artfully contrived for Han Solo to say, "I love you too."
Right.
You want your badasses to be a badass to the end. You want them to
right.
go down the way they lived. She says, "I love you," and I say, "I know." And George, I think that this is fair enough to say, he went apeshit. He thought it was horrible.
Lucas hated the "I know" line. He didn't want it in the film. But he trusted Ford, so it stayed. And it became one of the most classic lines in cinema history. That's an important thing to take note of. Lucas didn't always agree with the people around him, but he trusted them. And when he trusted them, he would defer to them, even on choices that he hated. And that's what made the work great. Not just that he had collaborators, but that he had collaborators he trusted, and collaborators who held him accountable. Fast forward to 1999. The technology has caught up with Lucas's imagination. He could finally do anything he wanted. No more practical effects holding him back. No more compromises forced by budgets. Total creative freedom. And he built Lucasfilm and ILM, the companies making the new films where he was the boss. Nobody really had any standing to tell him no. So the limits were gone from the technology, and the accountability was gone from the decisions. What Lucas wanted, Lucas got.
My sole function in life is to make what George wants physically happen.
The result wasn't better work, because there was nobody left who could make him defend a choice. Nobody he trusted to say, "No, that's a bad idea." And without that, every bad decision just stayed in and compounded.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
Now, here's the thing about these bad decisions. If nobody catches them during production, then the audience will. So that's the question. Do you want to find out that an idea isn't working during production? From someone you trust? From someone who actually wants the work to succeed when there's time to change it and make it better? Or do you want to find out from the audience when the work is done and it's too late? In 1977, Lucas found out what didn't work from his collaborators. In 1999, Lucas found out from the audience. So what does any of this have to do with you? Well, if you're a solo creator using AI, you're kind of in the same situation Lucas was in 1999, except maybe worse. The limits are gone. You can make almost anything you want with these tools. They will execute whatever you ask. There's almost no friction between an idea and the finished version of that idea. And there's nobody holding you accountable for any of the choices along the way. Now, that can feel empowering. It can feel like freedom. But
It's a trap!
So before you launch that first generation, you should be sure your ideas are solid. If you're using LLMs for story or concept development, then you might be falling into this trap. AI is a tool, and that tool, by default, is on your side. It's trained to be. It's the room full of yes men that surrounded Lucas on The Phantom Menace. Now, there's actually a Stanford study on this. It was published in Science earlier this year. Now, this study deals with asking the AI about advice on interpersonal relationships, but I think the conclusion about the sycophantic nature of AI is really what we want to take a look at here. That holds true no matter what you're asking it about.
People who interact with large language models have noticed that they're overly agreeable, they're affirming, they're even sycophantic.
Researchers tested 11 major models, including ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and DeepSeek. They found that these models affirm users about 49% more often than another human would, even when the user is wrong. So, your bad decisions don't potentially just go unchallenged, they actually get reinforced. And you have to know that this is happening, because if you don't, you won't know to question decisions you've made. I mean, why change things when you've got a chatbot telling you how strong the idea is, or how compelling, or, oh, that's a great idea. That's the spine of the story right there. That's one of these ones that Claude loves to say. So what do you do about it? Well, you can't replace a trusted human collaborator with a chatbot, but you can push the tool out of its default mode and get something closer to real pushback. And here's how. First, you have to ask the right questions. What do you think of this is more likely to get you praise? What's the weakest part of this will get you something a little more useful. Another thing you can try is to make it take a side. Tell it to play the role of a skeptical editor, a tough producer, or a hostile viewer. Give it a job that requires it to find problems with your creative decisions, not to validate them. Now, each LLM is a little bit different, and they're even different from model to model. And this technology is advancing really fast, and new models are coming out all the time. So rather than try to give specific advice on how to get the best out of a chatbot that might be outdated in a couple months when somebody is watching this, I'll just say that maybe the best thing to do is ask the chatbot. Sometimes people forget that they can even do this, but you can just ask it and it will give you tips that are most likely to get the kind of response you need, and it will be most useful for that particular model. And now here's another thing. When the LLM questions you, you should defend your choices. If you disagree with the LLM's criticism, don't just discount it and move on. Defend your position. Argue with the LLM. It might seem weird, but you should argue your case. If you can't articulate it, that might be a signal that the choice might be wrong. Now, I'm not saying that you need to take every note. The point isn't to do whatever the AI says or whatever any other human says for that matter. The point is to make yourself defend the work so that you feel confident in the decisions you've made. That's what makes the work better, and it's what makes you a better artist. Now, I've spent 17 years working at major studios, and I worked with incredibly talented people who would tell me when something wasn't good enough. And my work got better because of the notes I got, and I got better because of it. And now I don't have that anymore. I'm using AI and I'm working alone. And if I'm being honest, the big challenge isn't creating the stuff I want, because the tools pretty much take care of that now. They're incredibly powerful. The problem is that there's nobody there to tell me when I'm wrong, or if I have a bad idea, or if I'm going off track. Sometimes we just get a little bit too close to our own work and we lose perspective. Heck, I sometimes look at stuff that I did just 2 weeks ago and I think it's terrible, but at the time I thought it was great. The bottom line is always seek out advice, comments, and criticism. Defend your decisions. Make sure you have intent behind your choices. It's what makes you a better artist. It's what makes your work better. Because the audience passes final judgment, and by then, it's too late. Your bad decisions are there forever. Unless you're George Lucas, in which case you can just lock the originals in a vault and release special editions. But criticism is part of the creative journey, so make sure you get it somewhere in your creative process. We all need it. Lucas needed it. I know I need it. And you probably do too.